The station heater made a sound like an old man arguing with himself. Lena had named it Gerald. Gerald was the only company she'd had for 9 weeks on the Svalbard research post, a reinforced box bolted to a basalt shelf above the Vidafjorden, and she had learned to read his moods. Steady hum meant everything was fine. Stuttering meant she needed to check the fuel line. The particular rattling groan he made at 2 a.m. on the 3rd Tuesday of February meant the outside temperature had dropped below -65. That night, Gerald was groaning constantly. Lena was awake anyway. She'd been running acoustic data on the glacier movements below. Dull work, necessary work, the kind that kept her staring at wavelength charts until her eyes crossed. Outside, the wind was doing what Arctic wind does in February, which is everything, all at once, without apology. She almost missed the motion sensor ping. She looked at the monitor, then looked away, and then again looked back. Something large was moving along the west wall of the station. It was a big female polar bear. Even on the grainy monitor feed, Lena could see something was wrong with the way she moved. Too slow, stopping, starting again. Her right flank was dark with something that shouldn't be there, and her belly, Lena leaned closer. Her belly was the specific roundness of late pregnancy, low and heavy and close. She sat watching for a minute, then another. The bear stopped moving. She pressed herself against the station wall and stayed there. Lena pulled on her gear. Outside was a physical assault, -71 with the wind factored in. Her goggles fogged immediately, cleared, fogged again. She came around the west wall and stopped. The bear was closer than she'd expected, 2 meters, maybe less, lying against the wall now, her sides heaving, her breath coming out in short clouds that the wind immediately destroyed. Old fishing cable. The fjord ice was littered with the debris of old seasons. The bear opened one eye. Lena stood very still. The eye closed again. She went back inside and opened every vacuum pack of mackerel she had, laid them in a trail from the bear's nose to the station door, and then stood back against the far wall of the station with the door propped open and Gerald screaming about the heat loss. It took 50 minutes, but she came in. The station was not built for this. Lena worked in the remaining floor space, which was not much, kneeling beside an animal that could kill her without particularly meaning to. She got the cable fragment out with pliers. She cleaned the wound. The bear made no sound during any of this, just lay with her chin on the floor and breathed, and once lifted her head and looked at Lena with eyes that were pale amber and very tired, and Lena said, out loud, to nobody, "I know, almost done." She redirected the equipment heater toward the bear's flank. She covered what she could with the thermal blanket. She turned off 2 of her 3 monitoring systems to reduce the noise in the room. Then she sat against the opposite wall and waited. The cubs came at around 3 a.m. Lena was half asleep when she heard it. This very small sound, 2 of them. They moved against their mother's chest immediately, blind and certain. Lena watched from her corner. She didn't record it. She ate half a protein bar, drank cold water, and didn't think too hard about anything. The food situation became a problem on day 3, and a serious problem on day 5. Her rations were calculated for 1 person doing sedentary research work, not for 1 person doing sedentary research work while quietly, irrationally sharing resources with a nursing polar bear. She began eating 1 meal a day, then less. She found 2 forgotten cereal bars in the pocket of her backup jacket and felt briefly wealthy. The storm that arrived on day 4 made going outside for supplies impossible. It wasn't a dramatic storm. It was just total, a complete erasure of everything beyond the station walls, visibility that turned the world into a white screen with nothing projected on it. She slept a lot. She talked to the bears in low Spanish because it was the language her mother had used when she was sick as a child, and it still felt, absurdly, like being taken care of. The mother's ear would track the sound without her opening her eyes. The cubs, Norte and Sur, she'd named them for no reason she could defend, were getting bigger, visibly, daily, bigger. On day 6, the wolves came. She heard them before she saw them on the monitor. 3 of them at the edge of sensor range, sitting in the storm like they had nowhere better to be. They stayed until morning. The mother bear was awake the entire night, perfectly still, perfectly alert. Lena sat up with her rifle across her knees and drank the last of her coffee. The wolves left at dawn. Whether it was the bear or the rifle or simply the cold that decided them, she never knew. On day 8, Lena's body made the decision her mind had been avoiding. She stood up from her monitoring desk and sat back down again without meaning to. She tried once more and made it as far as the heater before her legs simply stopped cooperating. She had been eating one small meal a day for 5 days. She knew this intellectually, the way you know a bill is overdue, aware of it, managing it, telling yourself it's still manageable. Apparently, it wasn't manageable anymore. She got herself to her sleeping bag on the floor. She told herself she would rest for an hour. She told Gerald to keep running. The cubs were making their small sounds in the corner, and the wind outside was doing its usual work. She was asleep in under a minute. What woke her, hours later, was warmth. Specific, enormous, animal warmth along her entire left side. She opened her eyes. The bear had moved from her corner and was lying pressed against Lena's back, the cubs tucked between them both, all of them breathing in the same slow rhythm. The bear was awake. She didn't move when Lena stirred. She simply stayed. Lena lay still and looked at the ceiling and listened to Gerald hum. Outside, -71. Inside, something else entirely. She slept again. The mother left on day 13. Lena opened the door in the morning, and the bear stood up, which she hadn't done in days, and walked to the threshold with the cubs behind her. She stopped there. Lena was still in her sleeping bag, watching. The bear didn't look back. She just walked out into the morning, which was gray and still and very cold, and the cubs went with her. And the snow took them in the way snow takes everything here, completely, without ceremony. Lena lay there for a while, looking at the open door. Gerald hummed steadily. The temperature outside was -43, which felt, comparatively, like something she could survive. She got up. She closed the door. She restarted her monitoring systems, looked at 9 days of unwatched data, and thought about where to begin. On a blank page, not in her research log, but in the small notebook she'd brought for personal notes and hadn't opened once in 9 weeks, she wrote one line: "Fed a bear." Bear returned the favor. She put the notebook down and got back to work.